Morning. It's Thursday, June 17th, and it only took 11 days for the ceasefire in Israel to fail. Now, I don't know why that happened. All I can tell you is, right now, that rockets weren't launched from Gaza. This time, they launched incendiary balloons. And of course, the Israelis responded with an air attack. Israeli aircraft carried out a series of airstrikes at militant sites in the Gaza Strip early Wednesday. And that's really the first such raid since Hamas and Israel agreed to a very shaky ceasefire. We can see it's very shaky because it took only 11 days to end. As of right now, I don't know anything about casualties. But I do know that the airstrikes were aimed at the Hamas facilities that the militants used to plan attack. Now, this attack might have been set off because on Tuesday, hundreds of Israeli ultranationalists, some chanting death to Arabs. And these people paraded in East Jerusalem in a show of force that threatened to spark renewed violence. Palestinians in Gaza responded by launching incendiary balloons that caused 10 fires in southern Israel. At least that's the supposition that I read. Now, walking around and shouting death to Arabs is not exactly the way to maintain peace. And the other thing is that this is putting a lot of pressure on the brand new government in Israel. The Palestinians took offense to the march, which was meant to celebrate Israel's capture of East Jerusalem in 1967. So the Palestinians look upon this as a provocation. And while supposedly Hamas called on the Palestinians to resist the parade, I don't know what that really means. But it seems like a version of resistance turned out to be the incendiary balloons. And in addition to the death to Arabs chant, the militants, the Israeli militants, the ultranationalists, were chanting, "May your village burn." So I don't think that's exactly the correct way to try and establish a peace. This raucous group was called out on Twitter. Everybody attacks everybody on Twitter. By the foreign minister, Yair Lapid. He said those shouting racist slogans were a disgrace to the Israeli people. He added also, the fact that there are radicals for whom the Israeli flag represents hatred and racism is abominable and unforgivable. Those are pretty strong words. And Lapid, in 2 years, will be the prime minister. So I think he did the correct thing with calling out the people and telling them these kind of behavior is totally unacceptable. Now, as far as I know, Naftali Bennett, the prime minister, and a hardline Israeli nationalist, hasn't said anything about this parade yet. But he has in the past promised a pragmatic approach as he presides over a delicate, diverse coalition government. And I think as much as anything else, this parade, while showing hatred for the Arabs, was also meant to be a test on the new government, to see how they would react, to see if Naftali Bennett would back the ultranationalists to the hilt. And I think they found out that they guessed wrong. because I don't think Bennett would be so foolish enough to back these people in the beginning of a regime that is on tenuous footing. Elections in Israel are much different than elections that we see in the United States. These governments can be overturned very quickly. I believe that in their parliament, they have a way of breaking up the government if it is not reacting the way many would like it to perform. So this is a test to the government and a test to the people of Israel. Will the moderates in Israel take a stance against the ultra-nationalists with a view creating a solidarity within Israel which has probably been missing for a while? And don't forget, lurking in the background, we have Benjamin Netanyahu, who really didn't want to be removed as prime minister. And he still has hopes of returning in that role. So there's a lot going on in Israel that doesn't meet the naked eye. And certainly, Hamas didn't help the situation by floating incendiary balloons into the air and forcing the Israelis to attack. I think the provocative actions of the marches was unacceptable. I think as far as I could tell, the government reacted properly. I think that any person, any government, any institution that remotely think that Israel's belief in its fight to survive against all odds will waver is making a huge mistake. The Israelis intend to stay where they are. They intend to survive as they have survived for 5,700 years. In their lives, this is but a skirmish. So I don't think overall there will be any reaction that is far from what happened under the governments of Netanyahu. I think Israel is determined to maintain its rightful place in the world. While it took them a while to get this government straightened out by the thinnest of margins, and they have done some unique and different approaches to forming this government. They are in it for the long haul, and we should all recognize that. So what are a couple of incendiary balloons compared to 4,000 rockets? Not much, but it just shows that while we have a ceasefire, we don't have anything that remotely resembles a pathway to peace. So I leave you with those thoughts this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.